Welcome to another episode of Crash Chords Autographs. I, of course, am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon. And before we get into this week's episode, I, of course, want to thank my patrons, Rob, MJ, and Case. Thank you for contributing to my Patreon at patreon.com/Stormageddon. You can give there, whether it's $1, $5, $10, whatever. All of that money goes right back into this podcast and all the other podcasts I make to grow those shows, get better tech, create more content, all of that stuff. If you can't give, that's great. Sharing it is always helpful as well, or writing a review, rating it on iTunes or the podcast platform of your choice. Enough about that, though. Let's talk about this week's guest, which is the incredible Jenn de la Vega. Jenn is a chef, a podcaster, a writer, a musician, kind of a jack of all trades, or Jackie of all trades. Get it? Sorry. Anywho, I first heard Jenn on Fun City, which is a Shadowrun podcast that I am obsessed with, but I was really excited to talk to her about all the other stuff that she does as well. So without further ado, here is my conversation with the incredible Jenn de la Vega. All right, I just want to make sure that the Skype call itself is recording. It should be. It should show me somewhere that it is. Let's see. Yep, it's recording. Excellent, great. So, just a casual chat. We'll talk about all the stuff that you work on. Just nice and friendly, super easy, no pressure.
Yay!
And I'm actually really excited to have you on. My lofty goal is to eventually interview everyone from Fun City individually, and then do like a group podcast at the end of that.
Oh my god!
But that said, I did discover you and learn about you first from Fun City Ventures, so I thought we might start there. And
Sure.
Chat a little bit about how you actually got involved with Fun City.
Well, this is the first time I've ever played a tabletop RPG. Like I've always wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, but I guess a lot of my friends live on the West Coast, and I don't know. I'm just kind of busy, so I don't. I never set aside the time. But I met Mike, I think 2 years ago now, through Kickstarter. So they have a creative residency, and it's very wide. So someone like me who is a chef, I never thought that I could be considered an artist, who could have a residency.
Right.
But the more I thought about it, I was like, well, it's called culinary arts for a reason. So I applied and I got in, and Mike was in my cohort.
Oh, so, nice. Awesome.
Yeah. So it was cool to sit next to each other and ask what he's listening to, even though our work didn't really align at all. He's just a really cool dude.
Yes, I would agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And so maybe a year later, he emailed me out of the blue, how do you feel about crimes and playing a game and maybe being on a podcast? I feel like I have the actual email somewhere else. I can pull it up later. But I was so excited because no one's ever asked me to do something like that before. And it's very, very different from what I do in real life. And so it's a great way for me to really escape. But I studied that book so closely. I was on a flight back from California the night before our first recording or our first practice session. I don't know if you know this, but we practiced for maybe 9 months before we even released anything.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a false start. We started, but we weren't really used to being on the mics yet or with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a problem with that because I used to have a radio show in college, so I like speaking very closely to the screen filter thing.
Sure.
But yeah, that's how I got into the podcast. It's my first. I've been guests on other podcasts, but nothing consistent like that.
That's awesome. And so did you meet everyone on the podcast when it started? Did you know any of them previously?
I knew Taylor.
Of course,
through
yeah.
Kickstarter, of course. But I kind of stalked Bijan online. I read his work. He's a pretty well-known tech writer.
Yeah.
And he's friends with my friends, and I'm like, I wonder if we'll ever be friends. And we are.
Amazing.
It's
Yeah.
very nice.
I mean, I love that. Like, it's funny because I've listened to a lot of actual play podcasts, and some are hit or miss for me. But what I love about the story that you guys have crafted is that it just feels so genuine. Before we move on to some of the other things you work on, can you tell me a little bit where Viv came from? How you created Viv and her character?
So this is like, I don't know, potential spoiler, maybe? I don't know. Basically, I wrote another character for the practice games. I think you're going to meet this person later. But yeah, I wrote another character, and when we decided to restart, Mike sort of said, okay, now make a character you really, really love. And I was like, but I already love this one. And so I sort of made a foil to that person.
Ah, okay.
So Viv is very water elemental, so this person is a different element. The other person's also really old. So it was really fun to, I don't know, play an old man. I've never role played before, so saying things in the mic like, he just shuffles over to the crudité and takes a small bite, shuffles this way and shuffles that way, rummages in his robes, like that kind of thing. So that was a lot of great practice for Viv. But her, like, real-life spirit is Stevie Nicks.
Oh, okay, sure, duh. Like, I see it completely now. That seems so obvious.
So there's different eras of Stevie Nicks, and you'll see that there's different eras of Viv.
That's
so
really cool.
How far have we gotten? So the last episode you've heard was 12, right?
Yes, correct.
With the big fight?
Uh-huh.
So after this is Viv 2.0.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
Love getting the scoop on that. That's really cool.
Little teaser.
Yeah.
Mike, so at our launch party where I met you, Mike gave us each books about our skills. Yeah, isn't that nice?
That's so nice.
He gave me a copy of Sandra Kine's Sea Magic. So I keep this by my workspace, and we'll pull prayers from it, folklore, rituals that inspire Viv's actions. You can tell when I started reading the book in the podcast.
Sure, yeah. Like, I'm sure it influenced the way you spoke and the things you said.
It just gets richer and richer from now on. So it's so exciting, and I can't wait for you to listen to the future episodes.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I've never latched onto characters so fast, and I think part of that comes from I knew Mike previously. He had been a guest on this show way back during the Idea Channel days, and then I met Taylor randomly and independently from anyone. My spouse works in a podcast production, and at one point she was talking to folks at Kickstarter, and when Taylor was still there, we had a meeting with Taylor, and I told Mike this later. I got the inside scoop that he was working on something with Mike, and it had to do with Shadowrun.
You had early teaser.
And he's like, you can't tell. He's like, you can't tell anybody. But like, Taylor was so excited about it. It was really adorable. It was so cool.
It's really wonderful. Yeah, Taylor is just like our cheerleader. Even though he's trying to kill us every episode, he is just so in it 150%.
It's unbelievable. I think it really, like, their energy as well as how good the cast is really translates so well on that show, and I think is what puts it for me above other shows, is the fact that I care about these characters. So
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you do. I mean, I didn't set out this way.
Sure.
I was just, let's see how this goes, because this could get canceled in like 3 months. But here we are, a year later. It's pretty amazing, and I love it.
Yeah, and the community is great too. I've met so many awesome people just through the Discord and everything else, and on Twitter, and that's just been so fun. It's nice to know that there are people out there as weird as you are, and when you share strange things, like the people, instead of being like, "What is that?" they rally around and they're like, "This is great. This is ridiculous." Like I love that.
Yeah. I love niche communities, as you'll find out.
Yes. And so let's shift talking about what we could probably say is the main thing you do, which has to do with cooking. You're a caterer and a food stylist, recipe developer.
Yes.
So since that's something you do in the more larger scale, is that something you've always been interested in? Have you been cooking since you were a kid? Did you always like cooking and recipes, or is that something you found later?
I have this I have this trend of jumping into things that I know nothing about.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's been a decade now, but I was working in the music industry like 12 years ago when I moved to New York. Oh, actually 13 now. Oh my gosh. And I guess the reprieve for us was Sunday brunch, and my friends and I would make tons of grilled cheese every Sunday.
Nice.
And I hated like repeating myself. So I started to learn more about cheese and iterated. So we did it for a year and a half, like a different grilled cheese every Sunday. And so that sort of sparked me into thinking about culinary school, which I ended up doing, but then dropped out. And I decided to travel instead and self-study. Like I bought all the French books and all the Italian books and Spanish books and, made a curriculum for myself for like maybe 3 years.
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
really intend for it to be that long, but I had a day job. I bounced from industry, from industry to industry. And cooking was always just a part-time thing up until maybe 2 years ago when I went full-time with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I also see that you're the editor at large at Put an Egg on It, and that you've worked with other publications and stuff. What is it that you really love about writing about cooking? What's your favorite thing about it?
Oh my gosh. I love passing on knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it unlocks something in someone's brain and they're like, oh, I can do that. Oh, I love that. And I love that when people eat things they've made, they've have a new superpower, and you can only build from there. And so my priority when it comes to like the writing that I do, it's very ingredient specific. It's always kind of a beginner tutorial. Although I do go off the deep end with like high-end cooking because I like to exercise my brain.
Sure.
Kind of like I'm on Chopped, voluntarily like, every
Amazing.
day. But I don't know. Especially now, like with what's happening in the world, I think it's so important to like use everything to its fullest potential, feed yourself, feel good about it, So it's really important to me.
For sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, too, because we'd first spoken about doing this interview before most of this stuff has blown up. And now it's like, oh, everybody has so much more free time to be home and not go out. But I imagine like that must almost motivate you a little bit, since now you're going to be home more and your audience will be home more, to maybe put out more recipes or try new things, because, the accessibility to fancy restaurants is going to be limited.
Absolutely. I already sent in an article for one of the publications about blanching, which is what a lot of factories and canned food manufacturers do before canning things. So you can do it at home. And I'm working with Put an Egg on It. We're still figuring it out, but we're going to do a 24-hour zine jam to help people understand their pantries and use up everything and be smart about it and store things safely, because not everybody's worked in a restaurant. A lot of people are going to be doing this for the first time, having to spend a whole week at home with not a lot to do. So food safety is a huge concern. You can totally food poison yourself and make this whole quarantine worse. I've done it before, with my experiments, but, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Cook things to the right temperatures and all that.
For sure, yeah. I think that... So my spouse cooks a lot more than I do, although she's convinced I'd be good at it if I wanted to do it more. But I also get very anxious cooking. I'm just an anxious person, so I'm always afraid I'm going to cook something wrong or I'm going to poison somebody, which I'm told that a lot of early chefs go through that. You're not sure how things work, and until you find your rhythm, there's a lot of that kind of anxiety is natural.
Yeah, it's a lot of trust and trusting yourself. I definitely went through that. I think the earliest inkling of it was when my brother and I were about 8 and 10, and we would just be mixing stuff in the kitchen, and it was just for fun, And my poor mother, immigrant mother, dutifully ate all of it,
Oh
even though it
no.
was disgusting. Yeah.
That's a good
So,
mom.
I mean, I'm sure I know she's had like stomach aches because of us, but that's kind of like where it started, but I never took it seriously until now.
Got it. Do you have, and this is probably like asking you to pick your favorite child, but do you have a favorite recipe, or more? Let's make it broader so it's easier, right? Do you have a favorite thing that you're making right now? Like when you're at home, is there a thing that you're making a lot of because you're just really into it right now?
I'm actually into bread right now. I'm terrible at baking. I'm really, really bad at baking. I mean, there's this stereotype about chefs versus bakers. We have different mindsets.
Right.
And there is there's some truth to it, but I have been trying to like improve my baking skills. And I'm not very mathematical. When you're dealing with baking, it's like weighing and scaling and math. And I do have a little bit of scaling in like savory cooking, but I can usually just throw a handful of something, it'll be fine,
Sure, yeah.
But in baking, it's like a half teaspoon of baking powder. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, but excuse me, I have allergies.
No worries.
There's a New York Times no-knead bread recipe that I started with. A lot of people have started to make this because it's really easy. It's not a lot of ingredients. It's from Jim Leahy, who runs Sullivan Street Bakery.
Yep.
And they have this bread there. Sorry, tangent. It's called the Pizza Bianca, and it's like a 6-foot focaccia with sea salt and rosemary. And I want some excuse to just buy it. I just want an excuse to buy a 6-foot focaccia, but I have no reason so far. But his no-knead bread recipe, you make the dough, and then you let it sit for like a day, and then you bake it the next morning. And I couldn't believe that I did that. And then so from then, I've been changing up the ingredients. This is mostly how I innovate a lot of my own recipes, is just like swapping things and seeing how far we can go before I get a tummy ache.
I mean, if you're your own guinea pig, then for sure that makes you worry a little less because if you have to suffer, it's fine.
I mean, it's been a while. I haven't really put myself in bed yet.
Well, that's good.
Knock on wood. I'm knocking on some wood. But yeah, bread baking. Shannon was baking baguettes today too.
Oh, awesome. So, very cool.
Yeah, you check out her Instagram stories.
I'll have to check that out.
And encourage her.
I will, absolutely. Hands down, yeah. Is there anything you've not done with cooking yet that you'd really like to try? Something that you've not had any experience with, but you'd really like to dig into?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of like... there's a lot of like outdoor large format cooking that I'd love to do. My majority of my cooking career has been barbecue. Over a grill or electric or barbecue-esque cookouts kind of things, picnics. But I have some friends who have land out in Pennsylvania, and we try to get an animal, like a whole animal, and break it down, figure out how to cook it. We've done a pig, we've done a goat, we've done 40 beer can chickens. I've built a smoker. So there's this other chef, Francis Mallman. I don't know if you've seen Chef's Table, like the first season.
Sure.
He's kind of a jerk. Like you have his daughter like crying on screen, but my dad wasn't really around. And then he's just like talking about dating all these women, and I'm like, this guy is not great. No. But the way he cooks is amazing. He's like in Patagonia and like crucifying lamb and throwing potatoes into the hot coals, and I live for that stuff. I mean, I know it's problematic, but I'm like, I want to do it,
Sure, of course, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And so those kinds of things that you've done, what would be like the opposite of like the heavy-duty barbecue stuff that you've been doing?
Oh my gosh, tiny precious tapas, which is something that I've been writing about historically and politically because it's a Spanish culture thing, and I love going to Spain. It's amazing, but it also has this like difficult history with the Philippines, is where my family is from.
Okay.
And, they colonized it.
Yeah.
My last name is very Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like turmoil and just things that seeped in with the food. And so like the opposite of like abundance and family style, which is what I grew up with, is like tiny, precious fine dining, like tapas. So I made a meal last year based on that. Like, what if the dynamic had changed? Like what if it was the other way around, that the Philippines came to Spain, and like what would the food look like? And so that was a really fun, like, but also interesting thought exercise about like the history of the food of the people where I come from.
For sure, yeah. Digging into that kind of stuff and relating to that stuff is always interesting, right? Especially if you don't know what you missed growing up that like now is more apparent or something you learned.
Yeah. That's why I've sort of called it my great backpedaling. Because I was a 90s kid, Gushers, Taco Bell, Costco pizza, like lots of stuff like that. Very processed, very consumer oriented. And I didn't really get into food until much later in life, maybe when I was near end of college, so like 21-ish.
Okay.
And yeah, it like flipped a switch. I think it was a potluck. It was a potluck that flipped it for me.
There's always something, right? Like you experience something and you go, oh, maybe I could actually do that, and it's a switch that doesn't always turn on until you're witness to it in some form or another.
Yeah, and my friends didn't die.
Yeah, I mean, then that's important too, right? We don't want to kill our friends. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Randwiches. And if you told the listeners a little bit about Randwiches and what that is and why you're known for it.
Okay, yeah, my username pretty much across the internet is Randwiches. It's a portmanteau of random sandwiches. Thanks to Danelle. Do you know Danelle from our Discord?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Danelle's the one with his former coworker, John. They're the ones that named it.
Oh,
Randwiches.
nice.
Yeah, because I just was going around. This is during a period of my life where I was unemployed and, had cabin fever. And so I asked my friends who worked in offices if they wanted lunch. And it was like my treat, just a friendly thing to do. I got to go all over the place, like to the Bronx and to neighborhoods I've never been to, like Jackson Heights. And so their coworkers or, friends would see that they Instagrammed it and they'd be like, how do I get one? And I felt really weird about accepting money for like a thing that was made out of love.
Right.
I wasn't a caterer yet. Like I didn't have a business. Mm-hmm. So I was rightfully scared when it became a popular thing. So I had a Tumblr. It got featured in like Daily Candy and like Thrillist, and, like best sandwiches in New York City, like way back. And I wasn't like ready for that spotlight. And
sure.
So I sort of like crumpled under it. Because I started getting more nervous about the overhead. Like, the more sandwiches people ordered, the more it cost me to, like, do this. Right. And, like, hiring people is so scary. And, like, I don't think I can afford to do this. And so I did one bad job, and I kind of, like, put the kibosh on it and was like, okay, I need to rethink this and focus somewhere else right now. So I disappeared for a minute. And then came back with a vengeance through cooking competitions, which... I know. This is not a visual interview, but there's
I
a
can see.
trophy.
But I can see your giant trophy. That's amazing.
It's from a barbecue competition.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
My movers refused to touch it. They were like, "This is too fragile." I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna carry it the 3 blocks to my place then."
There you go. Show them what's what.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. I think when we start creating something from the heart is where we find our passions, and then we can, figuring out how to monetize any of that stuff is daunting and scary because I'm sure, like any artist, it's hard to always think that our stuff is worth any kind of money, right? Whether it's because you feel guilty or because of whatever else, like building up to that is tough. So finding that niche and then kind of getting back into it is hard, but also really important.
Yeah, I could have just given up and like stayed at my tech job with all that health insurance and all that.
Oh yeah.
Hey, real talk.
Ew.
But I talked about this with a few of my close friends that there was this unhappiness that started just build up, like started dogpiling on me. Even though I was fully satiated, paid well, and was taken care of, I needed to sort of flip the table on everything in my life when didn't want to cook anymore.
Right.
Like I would come home and just feel so tired and like order something, which is the total antithesis of what I'm all about now. Like
Right.
so it was a huge wake up call.
Yeah, for sure. I want to jump back a little bit, and you said that you were part of the music industry at one point.
Yes.
You happened to send me your album, Volume 1,
Yeah.
from your band, the Shortsleeves, which, oh my God, I love it so much. So growing up as a Nintendo and Super Nintendo kid, like anything with heavy synth and you know, electronic beats and things like that. Like I listen to a lot of nerdcore hip hop as well that uses a lot of that and reuses video game stuff. And so like I love that kind of stuff. So tell the listener a little bit about the Shortsleeves and like how that came to be and why that kind of music of all the kinds of music that you chose to make.
Yeah, chip music. So, growing up, I played the piano like most Filipino kids do.
Yeah.
Most Asian kids, you know, their mom makes them play the piano. I wasn't any good at it, or at least I wasn't good at it in a traditional sense.
Okay.
Like, my brother can play with two hands. I learned that my strength is I can read one staff very quickly. So I moved to like the flute and the oboe, and melodies are more my thing than kind of the tapestry of it all.
Okay.
Which is why I have a collaborator. His name is Paul Owens, and this is amazing because we have so many cool ways our life paths intersect. And so sort of in between me deciding to go from the music industry to culinary school, I had a record label. It was called Mushpot, and I had it from when I was in college and brought it with me to New York. And I had an artist who sort of ruined it for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it starts as a sad story, but I think what I've learned recently, in the more recent years, is that trauma and joy, you know, go together. They're hand in hand. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was kind of the greatest thing that happened to me in terms of finding my people in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So he stole a lot of chip music from a compilation and community called YM Rockers, which is a European like demo scene group online. And I started getting all this hate mail, like, you're a terrible record label. Like, I didn't know where it was coming from, you know?
Right.
I was like, what is this? And so going through it and managing through this crisis of folding a label and going through it and, like, all that, this organization called The Tank in New York City.
Yep.
It's a
I
theater that does... You do?
Oh, yeah, of course I do. But please finish telling the listener what The Tank is. And then we can gush about it.
So the Tank is a nonprofit arts presenter. They're multidisciplinary.
Mm-hmm.
They focus on emerging artists. For a lot of people, it's their very first paycheck for making their art. And way back, you know, a decade ago, they were really into producing Blip Festival, Pulse Wave Event Festival, and a lot of electroacoustic music shows.
Okay.
And a lot of people from the chip community were sort of buzzing, you know, about this controversy that was happening with me. And out of the clouds, you know, like this terrible dust up, Josh Davis, he goes by Bitshifter, reached out to me and wrote me like a very thoughtful email trying to see my side of the story. And he, you know, went back to the forums. I saw it later, like, that he said I had a good head on my shoulders and I was completely blindsided. And, you know, he really stuck up for me, even though he didn't know who I was.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it was amazing. And so a couple months later, Mike Rosenthal, who is a founder of The Tank, reached out to me about, hey, you know, you managed this like crazy like press thing. How would you feel about doing press for us? And so I was the publicist for Blip Festival and like all these things
so cool.
for a couple years. Yeah. And then I ended up being a curator for Pulse Wave for a long time with Zanelle.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of how I found that community. There are a lot of people who are my friends now, and I met Paul, who is the director of Two Player Productions.
Mm-hmm.
They are the in-house video crew for Double Fine.
Oh, amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah, so a lot of our worlds sort of intersect. It's really amazing. So he brought his documentary Reformat the Planet to DVD, which is all about chip music.
Yep.
And I got to work on the screenings and getting it in the hands of people, like press people, and it was so much fun. Like we got to go on tour. We were in a band together and screening this movie and, having the best time. So then he left with his video crew to move to San Francisco, Portland and then San Francisco to work with Double Fine, and he's still doing great. We still talk about making music, but it's kind of like the Postal Service. We have to like mail it back and forth.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
It's really hard to practice. He uses LSDJ on 2 Game Boys, and I use Casio CT460, which has a very particularly warm timbre that I love. It really works with that noisy, glitchy, like synth of the Game Boy.
Yeah, it's really awesome. A previous guest of this show, Chris Kaiser, who does. Oh, do you know Chris? Do you know my
brother?
Chris is a good friend of mine. I met him through my friend Joe, and I didn't know he was a musician at first. And so then I started chatting with him about music, and he's like, "Oh, well, I make chiptune music," and I was like, "Oh, I would love to hear it." And so he sends it to me, and I fell in love with his album. And so then I had him on the podcast. He's so good. And what's funny is like the newest record is very science fiction, and I kept telling him that like it feels like a video game. And he's like, "That's funny because I don't really play video games, and it wasn't science fiction that I had in mind when I made it." But of course you know him. It's such a small world.
Yeah. Well, I call him my brother, and he calls me sister. Aww. Because we've known each other for about that decade, and we've collaborated in many ways, like producing shows. So
very cool.
Chris was one of the co-founders. Chris was one of the co-founders of Low Level Festival.
Oh, nice.
Which is something that I put together with my friends Dustin and Christoph, maybe 2 years ago. We keep trying to think about like, logistically, can we do this again?
Right.
But making festivals is very expensive.
Sure. Well, especially in the time we're in now, there aren't going to be very many festivals for a little while. That's so funny that you know him. That's amazing. But yeah, like I was so blindsided when you sent me the album because I had no idea. I mean, my path to knowing you is hearing you on Fun City and then meeting you in person, and you were lovely. And I was like, she's awesome. I'm going to follow her on Twitter. And then I started seeing the stuff about your cooking. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, and she's a musician? Of course she is. That's amazing. Like, I
make this joke that I've retired from like 3 different careers. And I'm like 30, I'm turning 36. Like, I'm like, for every decade I've retired from a career already. Which is very funny.
That is pretty funny. I mean, but it's cool to know that you and Paul are still talk and still want to make music. I think that, anyone listening, I would highly recommend going to the Shortsleeves Bandcamp and downloading Volume 1. It's phenomenal. I like it a lot, actually, like Chris's music. I like listening to it when I'm working on other things because I feel like, sometimes music with lyrics, I'm a big music nerd, so like when I'm listening to something with lyrics, I get wrapped up in it and I want to start singing along. Whereas if it's an instrumental, I can kind of just let it roll off me. And so it's really exciting to have more instrumental music. And I love the pitch of the band that it's, a Game Boy and a Casio girl. I think that's such a neat little tagline. It's delightful.
Yeah. I miss it. It was a very, very fun project.
That's awesome. Well, I hope more people check it out because I think it's really totally worth it. Shifting back to the cooking stuff, so you work as a caterer as well. Do you cater just in New York or do you cater outside the city too?
No, I do weddings and other events out as far as Portland and California.
Oh, wow.
Like
cool.
Next year I have on the list: Rhode Island, Lake Tahoe,
Very cool.
and upstate New York. It's really difficult. Like I do a lot of the, I don't know, events and projects that a lot of caterers would turn down.
Oh, really?
Because of convenience, and how weird and custom it is. I don't really believe that food should be prohibitive. I think that it should be made with care. It goes back to like made with love all the time. But when someone tells me their budget and I think, it's going to be a challenge, I'm so upfront about it, but we're going to do it, or we're going to find a way to work in this special thing that means a lot to you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I try to make it happen if we can all, if I can get my team together and do it.
That's awesome, though, that it sounds like you get to travel a lot just from the catering. Do you like getting when you travel to cater like a wedding or a special event, do you get time to like see those places too while you're there, or is it just all work?
It depends on what I've got going on, but I try to budget maybe 1 or 2 days of buffer because I don't know if you've ever had a 14-hour physical day where you're like standing and lifting.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure it's a little much.
I'm a piece of beef jerky the next day and I can't move. So I've learned to stretch and get one of those like lactic rollers for your muscles like marathon runners use. Because I'm up on my feet all the time. I'm running up and down stairs, carrying crates. It's very physical. And so I try to budget in rest as I've learned and as I've gotten older.
I mean, it makes total sense. Like, it's not even anywhere near the same level, but I'm a DJ and I do a lot of private gigs as well. And even though it's not a lot of lifting, you're on your feet the whole time. You're engaging with people the whole time. The days are long. Yeah, you have to be on the whole time. And like, I do a fair share of regular private gigs or weddings as well as friends events. And like friends events are kind of, much easier for me because like there's less mental strain, right? Because you're in a comfortable setting, the people. But like when I'm at a wedding where it's like it was recommended by a friend but I don't know them, or complete strangers, I'm on and I'm so focused that it's completely draining when you're done.
Yeah, you don't really know when to bring your shoulders down.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your ears on your shoulders. Yeah. No, I know that all the time. Yeah.
Someone I deeply respect online, Kat Kinsman. I don't know if you know who she is.
The name sounds familiar.
She's Kitten with a Whip on Twitter, and she's a culinary professional. She wrote like a book about anxiety, and she also has this hilarious video series. What's it called? No Pressure. It's called No Pressure. It's all about Instant Pot, and she talks to the Instant Pot like she's looking into the camera like all intense and going like, "Instant Pot, what are we going to do today?"
Oh, amazing!
And she'll sit there like with her mouth open at the camera for like a minute. It's the best thing.
That's so great.
But she tweets every day about it's unclench o'clock. And she reminds people to lower your shoulders, relax your jaw.
That's awesome.
Really wonderful.
It does. It makes a ton of sense. I mean, and we forget, right? You're so into whatever you're doing that it just falls out of your head to do like basic things that would make it so much easier to just exist.
My mom calls it being Gollum. Like,
that's great.
One time I was like working from a hotel room when my parents were there, and I was like with my knees up looking at like my computer on another thing, and I was like really crouched like this and like looking, and my brother took a photo, and my mom was like, "What are you doing over there, Gollum?" And I was like, "Oh God." I was like tightening up into a yarn ball.
Jeez, that's rough.
I know, just relax.
I want to talk a little bit about your books that you have. That you're selling on your site, about Showdown, the comfort food book that you released. What made you want to write about comfort food? I know you said you have you tend to focus on a lot of barbecue and you've done a lot of barbecue, but what made you want to write about comfort foods?
Yeah, so the framework for the book was recipes that I've entered into competition. So it's like 100 of them. That's like the technical aspect of it.
Yeah.
But comfort is something I've like focused on in my art practice, and not just like with cooking, but with like soothing music that I make, with installations that I make that are very touch sensitive or comforting. And I think a lot about why we need it the sources of it, and it's all about that relationship to pain. And suffering. And I may be the most chipper person on the internet, but I do think about things that make me sad sometimes. And I remember when I was taking like a college, Latin class, and it was a huge light bulb when we were talking about the passion of the Christ, religious passion. And that word, passion, means suffering. So there's this like relationship with comfort and release. And I don't know, I just feel like my food revolves around me being sad and what do I do about it? It's not inaction. It's about like solving that problem, or not a problem, but like confronting it head on. I won't say it's a problem, because I think everybody goes through something.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think we all have days where we don't want to do the things we love, right? Like we're so down that even things we enjoy are hard to do. And so figuring out how to do things in those moments to get yourself out of it is always helpful and not always easy.
Yeah. It's really hard to break through alone. So that's why a lot of the food I make is for a lot of people, or it's inspired by potlucks or gathering people or iterating on a single idea a million times, like popping 100 egg yolks or making 100 kinds of nachos or grilled cheese.
Right, exactly. And it's funny, like looking at the other book that's on your site for the last OG cookbook, you did recipe tasting and development. So is that, and so this is my own ignorance showing through a little bit, but do all cookbooks have someone who tests the recipes, make sure they work, make sure they taste good, and that they come out okay?
Yeah, depending on the publisher, and depending on the timeline and budget. Like most of the time, ideally, you want a recipe tester to make sure that it's real and it works. Because there was a huge controversy blow up with Gwyneth Paltrow,
Sure. Yes.
There was this really unsafe recipe about like raw chicken in her book or something like that. And so a lot of people are trying to safeguard the recipes. I mean, there are different proportions of relationships that authors have with recipe testers. Some of them are straight up ghostwriters. Some of them are just a safety check. And for this one, I was a consistency and like safety check.
That's awesome. And so does that require you to like cook all of the recipes and see how they come out? Oh, that's awesome.
And I was able to develop a few of them myself, like come up with ways we can do it within X amount of budget, this sort of community/neighborhood, or this background. So have you seen that show, The Last OG?
I've seen a few episodes. I have a friend who's on it, and his name is Joel. He plays he's the heavyset white gentleman, and I forget the name of his character now, it's escaping me, but I've watched a few episodes, and yeah, it's very funny.
That's great. But yeah, the premise of the show is Tracy Morgan is someone who goes to jail or prison, and comes back to a gentrified Brooklyn, and Tiffany Haddish is married to a white guy.
Yeah.
So it throws him for a loop, but he's very like culinary oriented in the show. And so what we did was we researched, our team researched, recipes that were mentioned in the show, make them come to life, and then also think about the neighborhood background. So a lot of it was Bed-Stuy, Queens, bodega culture. So we're pulling things like putting a spin on a chopped cheese. So I turned it into a dip, like a fondue dip. Or making your own hot sauce from like the community garden, because there are a lot of community gardens in Bed-Stuy. So I love thinking that way about how a book is going to come together. It is kind of like role playing,
Sure. You got to get into the mindset of the area.
Imagining where you are and what would this person make? What would they eat when they were tired? What would they eat when they were sad? So those are the kinds of exercises that we do creatively to figure it out.
Do you find that it's easier to create a recipe when you're in that mindset, or do you like having the freedom of just doing whatever you want?
Oh my God, I need to be reined in sometimes. Like I need parameters, and that's kind of why I loved chip music, or continue to love chip music, because it's all about limitation. It's about having 4 channels only. It's about how far can we stretch it?
Right.
So a lot of the times when I have clients that come to me and they're like, we trust you, do whatever you want. And I'm like, no.
No, I need something.
I need a seed. I need something that I can grow. You can't just give me an empty room because I'm going to go nuts in it.
Yeah, that's legit. I feel like I have 4 different podcasts, and this one started out as just a music interview series where I would interview musicians, and it grew beyond that because it was too focused. But now it's kind of blown up, and so my other shows are a little more focused, and I think I needed that. I love all the shows that I make, but the more focused in you get on something, the more you can put a different kind of energy into something you're focused on. I feel like than if it's just kind of a bigger open thing.
Sorry, I'm moving my legs because they fell asleep.
Yeah, you're good. No worries.
I don't know if you heard that. Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today. This has been lovely. Before we start to wrap up, I would love for you to tell folks the best way to find you on the internet, the best way to buy your books, to engage with the stuff you've made, where they can find you.
I make a lot of stuff. I make so much stuff. Like, it's kind of hard for me to keep track of it. But if you Google Randwiches, which is the word sandwiches, just put an R in the front. There is no E in sandwiches, by the way.
Nope.
Oh, no, wait.
No,
there's no H. There's no H in Randwiches because I've discovered so many people that don't know how to spell sandwich, and they put H's. I don't know why. Anyway, look for Randwiches online, pretty much every platform. I have a website that's more about like my catering portfolio. I have a Patreon where I share 4 recipes a month for $2 a month. I just launched an Etsy store last week, which sells like dry goods, like seasoning salts and spice mixes, like ranch powder.
Amazing.
Like not Hidden Valley, like I made it myself. Because, beans will get really boring after a week and you need to do something else. Salt bay that,
Exactly.
I have the shortsleeves.bandcamp.com and my book. So if anyone lives in Brooklyn and you want to reach out to me, DM me, I can hand deliver them if you're okay with that. And they're on the usual places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and this wonderful website, IndieBound. Do you know that?
Uh-huh, yep.
Yeah, so you can search your zip code and see if an independent bookstore has it in stock, or you can always request it from someone. It's called Showdown Comfort Food, Chili, and Barbecue. And, yeah.
Amazing, yes. And of course, if you are into Shadowrun or D&D in general, definitely check out Fun City Ventures, which is an incredible actual play podcast that's, I think, more narrative than actual play at this point. And I think that's what I really love about it.
Yeah, we made that distinction recently in one of our fun chatties, which is Patreon-only content.
Yes.
But, yeah, I fell in love with the idea that it's so much more important that we're telling this particular story in this particular time period that we are going through right now. Because it's kind of like a punch in the stomach, Yeah. that we have to find a way to process all these things that are happening, and Fun City is a great vehicle for that, and I love being on it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jenn, so much for your time, for being generous with your time. The last thing I'll ask you to do is I have a saying on this podcast, which is music is life and life is good. The idea is that if you're making art of any kind, life isn't that bad, even when you're going through struggle. So if you could just sign us off with that saying, I would be greatly appreciated.
Music is life and life is good.
That's it for this episode of Crash Chords Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Amons. If you liked the show, please rate and review us on iTunes and Facebook. You'll help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email matt.storm@crashchords.com or hit us up on Twitter @CrashChordsWeb. Thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Victor Devon, and I am the host of We Burlesque, the podcast. Every Monday, I talk to fabulous denizens of nightlife, including burlesque performers, both seasoned and new to the form, drag performers, performance artists, DJs, and artists who make up their respective scenes. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Please visit weburlesque.com to check out episode recaps and see all the formats available. And remember that music is life life is good.